Hi, welcome to the Butterfly and Compassion PAC podcast. I'm Mark Baldwin, and I'm here today with Pankaj Agarwal. And it's great to be with you again, Pankaj, and talk a little bit about your role with the Butterfly PAC and the Compassion PAC. We're in the process of figuring out how those two are going to work together. But Pankaj has been involved with the Butterfly PAC since its beginnings. He's one of the founders. And Pankaj has done a lot of the outreach to different Congress people and he's got a great process background. So he really has thought through this and has come up with some ways to do that. And we just thought we'd ask him today to share a little bit about sort of the motivation behind it, but then talk to us a little bit about how he actually gets about doing that work to influence, to create conversations around hunger and poverty, and to get Congress people to start thinking about those things more and more. So Pankaj, welcome, and we're anxious to learn from you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark, for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, maybe spend a couple minutes and kind of talk a little bit about the motivation behind the Butterfly PAC and sort of having these conversations with our leaders in Congress in particular, but leaders in general, about getting them thinking about issues of hunger and poverty and how to address those. And then maybe you can kind of carry that into how you actually go about doing it. So people out there may have a sense of, if they want to approach their leaders, whether they're Congress people or state representatives or other business leaders, about these issues, how they might go about doing that and having those conversations.
Sure, yeah. So Marv, I'm just going to go back a little bit in history. In the 1970s, the United Nations came up with a study that said that there's 48 million people, about 1% of the Earth's 5 billion people at that time, dying of hunger and hunger-related diseases. 38 million of them were children. And all this was happening when even in the 70s, we had more than enough food to feed everyone. And the Hunger Project was an organization that formed as a result of that. And they hypothesized that we could end hunger and poverty by the year 2000. And because what was missing really was the political will to get the job done. You know, we have these people dying, we have the food to feed them. You know, obviously what's missing is some will to get it done, the will of the people.
Right.
So the Butterfly PAC, the Hunger Project, Results, you know, all these organizations that I've worked with in the past and I'm presently working with, all were working to mobilize people and mobilize Congress to get the job done. And so go ahead, just ask me a question.
Yeah. So I know when it may seem unusual to people in some ways to have a PAC focused on this, because I think a lot of times when you think about a PAC or super PAC, political action committee, we think about the powerful or those that are in a political position already utilizing a PAC to kind of keep supporting them. But in fact, a PAC or political action committee really is a great tool to be able to use for this very purpose, to get people focused on issues of hunger and poverty and getting people to talk about it more and figure out what we can do legislatively and nationally and internationally to work to end poverty and hunger. But tell us a little bit again about sort of the Butterfly PAC and kind of the motivation originally, because I think sometimes you know, people may say, well, wait a second, shouldn't a non-for-profit be doing this? But why a PAC, and what was sort of the thinking there for you? Because you've been looking at this since you were a very young boy, old, yeah. Right? Yeah. So why a PAC and why now, I guess?
Yeah. So good question. And first of all, the good news is that, as you know, we have already reduced poverty by 2/3. So the number of deaths due to poverty have gone down from that 48 million number to 15 million a year. Of course, it's 15 million too much, but also the Earth's population has gone up to about 8 billion from 5 billion. So as a percentage, that has become much smaller. So I think it works out to 0.2% of the Earth's population is now dying annually of hunger and hunger-related diseases. Of course, it's too much. So when I map the world, the world of organizations and people working to end hunger and poverty, just very broadly, you have the United Nations, which is a big body, and UNICEF, the World Food Program, etc. You have a lot of care organizations that are private, like CARE and Bread for the World, etc. A lot of them are organizations of faith, and then there are some that are lay organizations. Then you have organizations like the Hunger Project, which are working on projects locally to end hunger and poverty, like digging wells and things like that.
Mhm.
And then you have Results, which is working in 28 countries to enroll members of Congress and members of Parliament into taking appropriate action to end extreme poverty. And so what Results is doing is they're approaching it from a grassroots perspective, that we go after Congress people, and we just show them that, look, we are your constituents, and there's people in your constituency that are eager to end hunger and poverty. And Results has been doing this for 40 years now. Mm-hmm. And I felt that there was a need for another organization like the Butterfly PAC. And it wasn't just me, it was really my partners, AJ Wagner, as well as Nick Shatsky and Nick Arena, that together came up with this idea that, hey, perhaps we can reward congressmen and we can get good Congress people elected and senators elected that will support the end of hunger and poverty. So it can be a synergistic relationship. And it's not just a grassroots approach, but it's an approach of more equal approach where, we are also helping you with your campaign and not just asking you for stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's how we started, and we've had some good success. Last time we reached out to, we had an ask of 3 issues related to domestic US poverty alleviation, such as the child tax credit and global poverty reduction. And there was a malnutrition bill. And we reached out to 85 Congress people, and we got a response from 45 of them that they had signed on to these letters. And I don't know the final tally yet, but I think that this is the way to go. As you know, there are 100 senators and there are 535 Congress people in the US. So to be able to reach out to 85 of them is quite creditable. And it's more than 10%, it's about 12.5%.
Very significant. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So let's sort of take it to the next level. You say you've reached out to 85 of them. Tell us, how do you go about doing that? How do you decide which ones to call? And maybe it's just a matter of limited time, limited resources, but how do you sort of decide, and how would you suggest others go about doing that if they'd like to sort of follow in your footsteps and do this kind of work?
So Mark, at the Butterfly PAC, what we do is we start with actually the Results scorecard. It's available on Results' website. And Results, since they've been doing this work for 40 years, they have a good history of how Congress people have voted. And so what we found is that 90% of the votes for ending hunger and poverty, both in the US and globally, come from Democrats. And, so for some reason, we are not able to get Republicans enrolled in it. It's not for lack of trying. We've been approaching Republicans as well, and we just have not succeeded in getting them to sign on to this. And this is not because of the new, what we call polarization in Congress, because this has been, for the last 15 years that I've worked with Results, I've been looking at the scorecard, and it's been pretty much like that.
Pretty much the same. Yep.
There were 80% then, and now it's 90%, but Democrats only voting for these issues. So how we identify them is that, and we're open to changing our methodology if necessary, but what we do is we sort by Democrats from the Results scorecard, and we look at the Democrats that have voted the least or provided the fewest co-sponsorships for our causes, for our asks in the last couple of years. And so there is the low-hanging fruit, I believe, that these are people that are Democrats. These are people that, should be happy to vote along party lines, if nothing else. and we just have to get the message to them.
Mhm.
So what we do is then we screen them. We look at who funds them, what kind of issues that they are consider important, what committees they're on, and because there are some committees that are more important, like the Foreign Affairs Committee, the committee, the Agriculture Committee, etc. And so we try to look for them, and then we reach out to them. And then how we reach out to them is they have this finance manager so all Congress people have two staffs. They have a campaign staff, which helps them to get elected.
Right.
And they have a legislative staff. And the legislative staff is paid for by the US government. And the US government is paying them to carry on the day-to-day business of Congress. Whereas the campaign staff is funded by people like us, like the Butterfly PAC and private individuals, and by fundraising that the Congress people do. And these two groups do not really talk to each other because by law, I think there are severe restrictions on how much they can talk to interact with each other.
Sure.
So I reach out to the finance director, and the finance director is on the campaign side. Their role is to get funding and speak to them about what the Butterfly PAC does and why we are interested in sponsoring the congressperson. And usually they're more than happy to set up a meeting for us with the congressperson. And then we are able to talk with the congressperson, tell them, what we're about. And I've never had a congressperson say, I don't support this, other than I've been in a few Republican offices in California, and they have said that it might be difficult to get the congressperson to sign off on it.
Okay. And are you finding the willingness for Congress people to meet with you across the board, or is it mostly elected Democrats or candidate Democrats that will meet with you? Whereas, what are you finding there, just for our edification here?
Yes, so far, again, looking at the results scorecard, they have results has advocates that are going after their own Congress people and senators. And as we know, half of our Congress people and senators are Republicans. So it's not for lack of asking, but it's just for somehow that's how the issues turn out, that they don't find something palatable about the issues of ending hunger and poverty. Personally, I've not tried to fund the Republicans because I think for how much money the Butterfly PAC has at the moment, and hopefully with your viewers' graces, we'll be able to extend much more beyond that. But at this point, I just thought the low-hanging fruit is Democrats that are not voting enough to speak with them and get them voting.
Those that are firmly on the fence, get them over, huh?
That's right.
Yeah, right. Gotcha. Very good. So as you think about sort of the work that you've done on the ground, Pankaj, what would you say have been some of your bigger ahas or bigger surprises over the course of your time doing this?
Yeah, so, one of the congresswomen that my group in California meets with regularly, because in the San Francisco area, let's say in a 100-mile radius of San Francisco, there are maybe 12 or 15 Congress people, and most of them are Democrats. And we've been meeting with them for 30-35 years. Congressman Ro Khanna is our newest congressman, and he's only been around for maybe 8 or 10 years. And we met him from before he was elected to let him know about ending hunger and poverty and why it's important to us. And he said he would support us, and he's been an ardent supporter. So meaning that with them, we don't have to have a conversation about we want you to vote on this bill because this is important. But rather we are able to speak to them more strategically on how can you support this bill? How can you get this bill across the finish line?
Yes.
And we have Congress people that have served for 25, 30 years. And in speaking with them, one of the key takeaways is that they say that, we will vote for this. Of course we will vote for this. But what you need is you need to get support from some of the more conservative areas. And one way to do that would be to go after the Southern Baptist Convention, to go after the conservative Christian organizations that support a lot of Republicans, and so that they can let the Republicans know that, hey, we need you to support the end of hunger and poverty, because that's what Christ wanted. Christ wanted us to love our neighbor, and he wanted us to treat everyone like we wanted to be treated ourselves. And at present, we are not doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, let's say that if there's somebody listening to this who is maybe in a more conservative area of the country, maybe a conservative state or district, and they're saying, gosh, I'd really like to start speaking to my congressperson, either my congressperson or my senator or senators, about this hunger and poverty issue. Can you kind of give them a thumbnail of how they might go about that? What would be kind of your 3 to 5 step kind of path for them that you would suggest?
Sure. I think the first one would be to come up with some criteria of who you want to support. And the low-hanging fruit is always great, because if we can get somebody who's voted on 4 out of 30 co-sponsorships that we asked for last year, then we have an opportunity to get 26 more. And so, that's a lot of reward for our effort, both money-wise as well as time-wise. So I think the first thing is to set up some criteria. The second thing is to look at their track record and see whom we are interested in, and then to just reach out, find the finance director online and reach out to the finance director. Sometimes you can find their phone number. You can look them up. Otherwise, once you know other finance directors, you can just ask them if they know the numbers of the other folks. And then we reach out to the finance director. We let them know, just one person needs to do that. It doesn't have to be a group call. And one person reaches out, lets them know what we are interested in and why we are interested in funding the congressman and in talking to them. And then we have the conversation and we fund them. And then, we keep reaching out to their legislative directors and hope that they'll continue to do the right thing. Or that they'll start doing the right thing in the cases of the ones that haven't been voting that much. And, the really time-consuming part is not getting to the congressperson or having the conversation with the congressperson, because you talk to a congressperson once or twice a year, but you're reaching out to the legislative director. Like I said, last year, it was 30 different issues. Sometimes you're able to club 3 co-sponsorships at one time, but it's a lot of just hard day-to-day work of reaching out 15 times approximately in a year and informing them about these and then following up with them.
Got it. Well, that's a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience in just a few minutes. Any further advice that you might give to somebody that's fairly new to this whole effort, but is saying, gosh, I really feel like I'm being called to or drawn to get more involved? What would you tell them?
Yeah, a few final points, right? One is, I would say that make sure that you get off the fence and just make a call, right? The best person might be your local congressperson. Unless your local congressperson is already quite high up in the chart, then you would almost be wasting your effort a little bit. So, but reach out to them. The second thing is, have a script, what you want to say to them, and have some frequently asked questions and answers to those questions, and practice with someone. And then just reach out and and if you've not had a congressional meeting before, perhaps speak to somebody who has had a congressional meeting. I mean, at Results, they have congressional meetings all year long, and they have at least out of 635 total congressmen and senators, they might have about 500 meetings, 450 meetings a year, only in the United States. So I think that that's another thing to do. The other thing is, you don't need large sums of money. As we know, there are rural areas where $250 is quite meaningful. And then where I live in San Francisco, $700-800 might be more appropriate. And also based upon how long a person has been in Congress, enhances their ability to raise money, because they've had, they've been around for 30 years. They've had 30 years of experience in raising money. So therefore, our $250, $300 may not be as meaningful to them as if we were to be able to speak to them with larger sums of money. But the point is, you don't need a lot of money. Get started, practice, and yeah, I think that's it. And then I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the other learnings that we've had from our
Yeah,
interaction with Congress.
please. Yeah, that'd be great.
So one of the Congress people in a Midwestern state actually highlighted that, look, I can vote on all the domestic co-sponsorships that you ask for within reason. I mean, because they pass the test of what my constituents want. But my constituents have written me and told me in meetings and told me in town halls that we want you to give all aid domestically. We don't want you to give any aid outside of the US. None of the US money should be going overseas. So she said that, if you can get me 5 or 10 constituents writing me and telling me that, look, I need you to support these global bills, then I can do it. Otherwise, I can't. So we really need to be beating the bushes and getting people out in all areas, even where there's Democratic representation, to let the Congress people know that, look, we need you. The other thing is always share the good news. Like I shared, that we've reduced poverty by 1/3 in the last 50 years. And now we just need to get that last 1/3 in the next 10 or 20 years. So it's really doable. It's really bite-sized chunks. And Congress is doing it. I mean, I always thank the Congress people that, thanks to you, we are in a place where we've gone down from 48 million people dying to 15 million people dying. And just keep the conversation positive, even if the conversation isn't what you expected and the result isn't what you expected. You just have to keep plugging away, keep reaching out, and feel free to have another conversation with the congressman or the finance director saying that, hey, we've not been getting a response. So what do you think? Why is the congressperson not showing an interest in working on domestic and global poverty issues?
Thank you for that. And thank you for ending this on such a positive note too. We can make progress. We have made progress. And with some more effort, we can continue to make progress and hopefully get to the 15 million people that are still dying per year because they don't have enough to eat or they're living in extreme poverty. So we can make more progress. We just need to get more people on board. So thanks for that, Pankaj.
Absolutely. And, as a man from my country said, Mahatma Gandhi, that, if every Christian were a good Christian, the world would be a great place. So we just have to get every Christian to be a good Christian.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes. So thank you. My friend, thank you again for your time and all your input and your effort and your love for our fellow brothers and sisters all around the world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Peace.